All right. Choose live mask. We are on here. All right, we are live, and I'm looking to bring Brian in here. Let's see. Where is BR? Share the group. Let's figure this out here. Guest request. There we go. All right. Hey there, Brian. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Bear with me, if you will. Forgive the technical difficulties here. If anybody can, let me know that you can hear me all right. Let's see, I'm going to attempt to invite Brian to join again. Just a second. Brian, I just sent you the invite. There you go. Brian's connecting right now. Anyway, thanks so much for the patience, everybody. There he is. Can you hear me okay, Brian? Can you hear me?
You're a little glitchy, but
I
I
am
got
doing
you. How you
well.
doing, buddy?
How about you?
I'm good.
Good,
I'm
good.
good.
So, everyone, we're going to be doing this once a week, every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, going live for a few, in the spirit of just trying to add value as men, as special needs, as parents to children with special needs. And I say children loosely. Brian's daughter just got married. My son is, gosh, I dare say this, 14. And Brian and I work together, and our mission is to empower people, as many people as we possibly can, but especially those in the special needs community. We touched on it a little last week. There weren't that many people on it. It was their very first time, so it might be a little redundant. Brian, why don't you go into a little bit about your story and what's brought you to where you are, and your experience as a parent to a child with special needs.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm glad that we're doing this, and hopefully we won't have to tell our stories over and over every week. But that's good. I was born and raised in Southern California. My folks were both entrepreneurs, and I kind of grew up in the family businesses and realized how much I didn't actually like working in the family businesses. And so I went to work in corporate America, and I worked for some really great companies in the entertainment industry. Again, born and raised in Southern California. So the entertainment industry is kind of, it's part of their fabric of SoCal. and worked for some great companies and met some phenomenal people along the way. Got my MBA, and so I was always in the area of finance and operations and administration. And my job was always to do shutdown scenarios, combine divisions, lay people off. I remember the first company that I worked at WQED was a Pittsburgh-based company, but we had an LA office. We had 380 people working at WQED when I first joined, and there were about 80 when I finally left. And so it was shutdown scenarios constantly. And then National Geographic and Time Warner, some really great brands in the entertainment industry. But my job was the same, always laying people off. And I realized that there was no such thing as job security in corporate America. And so I went into the entrepreneurial world and worked with a bunch of smaller companies in the entertainment industry. And then eventually moved into raising money for small technology companies and taking them out to the public market. And so the thing that I noticed is that in the last, 20, 25 years in my, my working life, I really never felt in control of my own destiny. I was always, having to deal with somebody else's decisions, whether it was a CEO that, was dealing with something going on in the industry, maybe the stock market, that does its up and down ride. Not a lot of control of my own destiny. And I was missing out on my kids, my kids growing up. So that dovetailed with my experience as a special needs father. So my oldest child she's now, she'll be 25 this year. Around this time that I'm looking at what I'm doing for a career, what I want to do long term. She wasn't talking much when she was a baby, and it was my first child, and my mom had said, "Oh, she's not babbling," and it used to drive me crazy. My mom was always like putting her nose in, she's not babbling. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What do you mean she's not babbling? Like, what does babbling mean? I mean, I kind of babble now. I'm 50, almost 57. Like, I don't know what that meant, right? So she said, well, maybe you want to go and, have her checked out. And so maybe it's her hearing. Maybe she's just not hearing. And so we went and had her ears checked, and they were like, her hearing's fine. But, if you're really concerned, maybe you want to go see a neurologist. And we went to see a neurologist. Again, I was just trying to do things to make keep my mother happy. And our neurologist, within 5 minutes of meeting us and my daughter was only 18 months at the time. She immediately had the worst bedside manner of any doctor I've ever met, and just kind of went in and just started typing on her computer, Jordan presents with, praxia, cognitive disorders, blah, blah, blah. And kept going on, whoa, what are you talking about? And yeah, oh my gosh. And dude, it was it's I would say it's kind of like the Charlie, Charlie Brown cartoons, and when they got animated, when the adults would talk, they'd be wah, 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 right? That's what it was for me. I was sitting there thinking what are you saying? What's going on? Time out. And I remember she said, well, okay, let me break it down for you guys. She will never live on her own. She'll never graduate, probably won't graduate high school, much less get into college. She'll need assisted care or drive. She'll never have a job. And we were I went from my daughter can hear and she's not babbling to she's going to need assisted living her whole life. And so it was quite a shock. I remember that feeling, that gut feeling, as a parent, complete lack of control, and yes. I know you know what that feels like. And we embarked on. Luckily, her mom was kind of I'm gonna say, but listen, we're gonna talk straight here in these things, right? Her mom was so I can say things like her mom was a hard ass. Her mom was a hard ass. And we got on it. We got on it. What do we need to do? What do we do with, how do we, let's prove this let's prove this doctor wrong. And we met with a group online. Now, this is 25 years ago when, there were not a lot of resources online. I think we were using Prodigy or AOL in the early days, trying to figure out what was this diagnosis she gave us and what are the resources that are available to us. And we had to go dig, and we had to find a group of people that we could, share stories with. We have them now, we call them Facebook groups now, right? But a group of people that were dealing with things like autism, cerebral palsy, a lot of things on the disabled continuum just to know, like, where do we go? What do we do? And, we were introduced to a regional center, and all of these resources were available, but only if you knew to ask.
Right.
And that was the one thing that I realized, like, if you didn't, if Jordan's mom was not such a, such a badass, really, and I mean that when the highest compliment, meaning there, I don't know what would have happened, because she was not going to take no for an answer. So we got her into an early intervention program. She learned how to do sign language before she could speak, and she learned how to. And so we realized, we navigated over the next 12 years of her life, different kinds of schools that she should be in, and where she should get educational resources and speech therapy and occupational therapy, and it was a challenge. And as it turns out, even though we're very close friends, our marriage didn't survive. We had a second child, by the way, that didn't have any special needs issues. But the challenges that we were dealing with as a family and as a couple, and dealing with these kinds of things with our child, it was a huge strain. And unfortunately, we became one of those statistics where family doesn't survive certain kinds of strains and stresses. But we were committed to making sure that she had everything that she could have available to her. And we joined forces, even as co-parents, not as a married couple, to make sure that she had everything that she needed. And I'm going to say this, I'll fast forward, because the great part about the story is now she was 24 and a half, she'll be 25 in November. She moved to upstate New York, where her mom now lives, had her own apartment, had a job working for the YMCA, got her driver's license, got her car, and was driving to work, met somebody that, and they got engaged, and in June they married. And so, it's a success story. It's a success. Thank you. It's a success story because it's such an amazing accomplishment. And most families look at that as like, well, that's just the natural order of things. Your kids go to school, or they get a job, they drive, they live on their own, they move out, they get married, they have their own families. It's for a special needs family. That's not always the way it is. So that, and I'll stop and let you talk. I realize I'm sort of rambling here, but my work background combined with these efforts that we are taking on for Jordan, they dovetailed in that the jobs that I had that I was completely unfulfilled doing, even though I was a CEO of my own company, and I was at the CO level within a bunch of companies. I just I didn't have any fulfillment, any satisfaction. And coming home and dealing with the challenges that we were dealing with, at home, or dealing with, Jordan's issues, it was a struggle. And so I got introduced to the business that you and I now do, which helps families and businesses take care of their insurance and their investments so that they can set a good financial future. The key to the business is that I get a chance to run my own business, be in control of my own schedules, not have to answer to a boss, and have time and flexibility to be available. I got to fly back to New York even during the pandemic to go to the wedding and spend a week with my daughter, and her husband now, and the family. And I couldn't have done that. I'd have to ask for time off if I worked for somebody, or I'd be stressed out that I was leaving my company to go do that. And so now I've got the benefit of doing that. And within within a few months of me, I realized Jordan had a phenomenal knack of being with people. And I know you know her well, Shawn, so you know what I'm talking about. She was, she's loving, she's sweet, she's funny, she giggles at everything, and people just are drawn to her. And she had some success selling Cutco knives, which is crazy. Cutco knives, a $3,000 set of steak knives, And I thought, well, geez, if she could do that, I could bring her into this business, teach her about finances, teach her about the work that we're doing. And the challenge in our work is that you have to have a state license. Like, you have to be issued a license by the state of California, well, the state that you reside in. And so I thought that might be a challenge, for her, considering her, some of her struggles in school and getting through school. But I'm happy to say, she passed the licensing exam and actually made some money with us, working with us, just introducing people to what we do. And I got a chance to do that. And for me, the pride of being able to, make their contribution, but also be working with her to help families. It's a great thing that, and I know, Shawn, I'll leave this and I promise you I'll end with this, but I'll say that it was a tremendous amount of pride considering where we were 24 years ago, or 23 and a half years ago, to think that the future looked so bleak, and to know where we ended up with her. I'm so proud as a parent, but just as a human being. And I know when we started to do some stuff and I started to look at the people that we help in our company, it's all about certain communities. And I remember Jordan distinctly saying to me, "So Dad, what's my community that we can go help?" And I immediately thought, well, obviously the special needs community is a community that needs to get educational resources, speech therapies, occupational therapies, if you know where to ask for them. But there are not many companies out, right? And there are not many companies out there providing financial resources. And so for those that are kind of watching this is when I went to Shawn, who I knew that Shawn had his son on the autism spectrum. I said, "Hey, Shawn, are we doing anything in the special needs community? Is there something we do?" And, your response was like, I've planned this forever, and, we're ready to go. Let's join forces and make this happen. And so, the fact that we've been working on this, supporting this community with financial resources and is, again, it's just there's an amazing sense of pride in the kind of work that we do here now.
Yeah.
So is that Elijah?
Just say hi. Wait.
Hey, buddy.
Wait. Okay. All right. I'll see you in a minute. Wait.
Hey, bud.
Okay.
That's Elijah. I love
He is.
that guy.
Okay.
Great timing.
Yeah, he's so, as you know, with autism, there's objects and moments of complete intense focus, and any change from that creates bedlam in the mind of the individual on the spectrum. And right now he's got this thing, I don't know what it is with toilet paper, that there's never enough. So, we have a large family.
Hey, it's the pandemic, man. There's no toilet paper for anybody. He's right in line with everybody else.
With a large blended family that we have, we shop at Costco, among other places, right? So what he'll do is he'll go in the bathroom, you have just the amount that's used. But what he'll do is he'll go to the garage and he'll take as much as he can carry and just fill up every corner of the cabinet in each bathroom. And now that they're all filled up, he's like, "You need to get more toilet paper." I'm like, "No, we don't." So he came in here. That looked cute. He didn't come in here to say hello. He came in here to be like, "Daddy's going to go to Costco. You're going to go to Costco today, right now." I'm like, "Yeah, dude."
That's awesome.
But
dude, he can come fill up my cabinet. He can fill up. I've got plenty of room for some more toilet paper, so I'm good.
What we do, because even a moment like that, not all that long ago, would have been like very, I don't know, I'm doing this thing, it has to be perfect. Just no, you can't interrupt right now, but that's one of the things that it teaches you, which allows me to kind of go into how we got together, my own story. I'm originally from the U.S. Virgin Islands, from the island of St. Thomas. My dad is from St. Thomas, my mom's from St. Croix, so I have family on both islands still. My grandparents were people that neither one of them made it to high school. But if you remember the skit on In Living Color with the Caribbean family, that's exactly who they were, which was like, when I was your age, treating, I was the cook, the butcher. I mean, that was what they did. My grandfather had the first, I believe it was the first one, a Chrysler dealership on St. Thomas. They had a pool hall and a restaurant. And then they eventually got into city and public transit on the island of St. Thomas. And so my dad grew up on school days getting up at 4 a.m. to go wash the school and city buses before he went to school. And having not even made it to high school and become a success in business, my grandfather had told him, you are either going to, if you don't go to college, the job you're going to have is picking up crap off the street. Like literally, I guess there's a truck that used to go around and pick up manure. And that was like, the thing you didn't want to do, which of course nobody wanted to today. So he went to college, but came back and went to work in that business and built others with my uncles and stuff like that. So I grew up with like probably that much appreciation for entrepreneurship, but infinite benefits from it. The immediate ones was being able to provide and my dad having his own schedule. And, you know, I think so he graduated from Hampton University, which was Hampton Institute, an HBCU in Virginia. And I think he might have had a job in college, maybe. I'm not even sure of that. And if he didn't, that means that for all his life, he's never worked for anybody. So, you know, I come to the States and
Well,
I get into the world of, and everything, and I'm working different customer service jobs and fighting my fight. And what I wanted to do is be in, entertainment. That was my dream. That was it. I wanted to have number one record, be the guy at the front of the stage and all that kind of stuff. Um, and I ended up living in Minneapolis for about 10 years, from 86 to 96. And while there, I got a chance to meet and work on a handful of Prince projects and a bunch of people around Prince's organization, and had these other examples of hard work. And my head is weird in that I can have this example of how something is supposed to work, and it just won't sink in until many years later. So, eventually I developed
sure.
my work ethic from being on my own. When my dad would get me up to go work in a family business and stuff like that, I would run these coin counting machines with my grandmother on the weekends, and I hated it. My grandmother would be like, "Where are you going now?" Because they would take the coins out of the safe from the buses, and then run the machine that counts the money, and then put it back in the safe after it's all rolled and everything. First thing Monday morning, you go to the bank, and then each day you're taking the money from the day before and going to the bank. So as a kid, I would go and sit with my grandmother, watching her do that kind of stuff, and then eventually, as I got older, whether it was a summer job or whatever, I was the one driving, doing that. Everybody in the bank knew me, whatever have you. And I just wanted something. I wasn't ready to live on a 32 square mile island full time per se. But like everything else, my appreciation for
Sure.
what all of it has to offer has deepened, not being there anymore. And, anybody will notice every now and then I'll post a picture and I'll say, this is where I come from, because there's a whole lot of pride that goes with that. And it carries over to why this business attracted me. And so I was working in mortgage sales support for Countrywide Home Loans. Big, huge company. So when you're there, yep, if you're not satisfied, you
Countrywide.
can look within the company, other parts of the country or wherever. You don't need to go outside. It was that big that it had that much to offer. And so I had my resume in the marketplace and within the company, just looking for something else, ready for something else. And I had kind of topped out in terms of the most I could make. And they would have like these monthly celebrations where they'd gather in their apartment and they, had been done. And you'd have like billions, not millions, but billions of dollars worth of loans that were funded just that month in your specific department, not even the company, just that, not department, but division, and people getting promotions and everything. And I'm like, I need something more. I don't know. And the responses that I started getting for opportunity was for a financial advisor. And I was like, just like, that just was the most foreign thing to me. But then I started thinking, what is it that I do that's on my resume that might lead someone to think that I might be able to do something like that or even be a fit? And it was the ability to manage relationships and connect with people. So I went to a job fair and eventually was offered a position with a company called AXA Advisors, who's a traditional broker. And so what happened is I went ahead and I signed an agreement saying that, I was on paid family leave. The state gives you a certain amount of time to bond with a child in the first year of life as a dad. My wife had already went on maternity and was off maternity. And at this point, we also had her daughters from her previous marriage who were teenagers at this point in time. And I signed the agreement, and I went and I got and paid for his licenses and everything. I remember thinking, I wonder why I paid them for the license. That seems kind of odd. Anyway, who cares? And then I got invited to an event, and I saw how the industry generally works, which is that the entity for whom you work usually owns the book of business, also owns the license. They help the wealthy. Everybody else gets left behind. Something that was the complete opposite.
Right.
And right away, I thought at this point, and Elijah's diagnosis was new. So in September, we'll make it, next month will be my 14th year doing this and being with the company. And so I got to thinking, if families with neurotypical children that have no developmental delays or anything like that need to know how to make the most out of their money, put it to work. Maybe you can grow it without the risk of losing it, not pay taxes on what you grow, protect the loss of income, get out of debt,
Yeah.
create wills and trusts, all that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, for whom your time, and then have the reward, not only financially, but the reward of giving other people that gift as well. That's 10 times as important for the special needs community. And and to be honest, it took time
For
for me to
sure.
get out of my own way in my thinking in terms of, oh, what's somebody going to think? Because again, we were new to the special needs community and new to diagnosis. I didn't want anybody thinking I wanted anything from them. And I realized over time I was putting so much energy on, what someone might think from a negative standpoint, that I had no energy almost left over for the person who would be like, oh my gosh, where have you been? And so what happened in the last 14 years is that my wife and I took in my sister-in-law's 4 kids, and I completed the adoption process about 2 years ago.
Because your family wasn't
Yes,
large
yes,
enough
yes.
as it was.
I
Taking
needed several
4 more
legitimate
children.
reasons to have, a reason to consider changing my last name to Jackson, Walton, or Osmond, so I could pick, right? But gifts come in the strangest
That's funny.
packages, because Elijah, as you saw moments ago, is verbal. I think he would be anyway, but I don't know if he would be if we didn't take them in. And I really had some serious growing to do as well, as a person, as a man, and continue to do that. And as a team, I'm the person that's out in front that does this. But you talked about your ex-wife being the badass, the detective, and everything. Anybody that knows me well, even if they haven't met her, knows that that is exactly who my wife is. So the fact that she had children prior and had daughters as well, who tend to mature and develop faster than boys anyway, she was like, there's some things that just aren't quite right with him in terms of his development, meaning Elijah. And I was like, I don't see what's wrong. I mean, even when he picks his nose, I think it's cute. I didn't see it. And so we went into early intervention, took him to the doctor. The doctor said some of the things that he's doing are symptoms of autism, but some of those very same things are symptoms of our normal behavior. I'm like, so then what does that mean? He says, well, you get him into early intervention. So we did. He was diagnosed with autism. And I'll never forget, we were waiting to find out, okay, so what's going on? They hadn't let us know. I called the doctor's office one day, and full transparency, we were going through such a hard time at that point that we were renting a house, and things had gotten really tight. And we ended up moving in with my brother-in-law and his family. And this is prior to taking him, adopting my sister-in-law's kids. It was just me, Elijah, my wife, and her 2 daughters. And I'll never forget that day. I remember the room I was in, standing by the window, when the person I spoke with on the phone said, what are you calling about? Told her. She said, what's the name? I said, it's Elijah Francis. So that's my son. She's like, okay. Yeah, yeah. See, yeah, he has autism. Mm-hmm. Like, your pizza is the one with the pepperoni on it. Like, just that. And and you know me, if somebody does something that I think is kind of out of line, I'm going to step up and say something. Just like if somebody does something that adds tremendous value, I want them to know. I want their boss to know, all of that kind of stuff. In that instance, I was like,
Sure.
oh, okay. I was like, what do you do? And I literally felt like I got hit here. So we're like, and I won't say that, that my wife didn't have a moment of doubt and sadness as well, but she was the one that got over that quicker and like, well, here's what we need to do. And like just like today, she was talking to me about an email that she sent me with these 10 different ways to get your child to change diet and that kind of thing, because we've been very lucky with his health, but he doesn't always eat necessarily the healthiest things, again, because you're looking at habit and everything. So, and the other thing that's happened over this period of time is, like I said, he's now 14. The kids are are older, and now he's going into his first year of high school, which is just mind-blowing in and of itself.
Yeah, but just going back a second, I think that the difference between the way that men and women deal with this kind of an issue, I think, is, I don't want to call it stereotypical, but it is kind of, it is very along gender lines. I mean, I think, men in general, when it comes to their family and to their children, we have such a, such a big ego and pride you know, that if there's anything that's less than perfect, we take it personally. Like, what do
Right.
we do?
Right.
Whose fault is it?
Yeah.
Like, who can we, there must, right? And well, first is who do we blame? It's like, what did I do? And then if, you know, God forbid it's anything having to do with us, we got to shrink into our own little hole, right? Women tend to, and I'm sorry to generalize and stereotype this, but women tend to be like, let's go, let's get things done. Let's figure out what has to happen next. And okay, this is the information, right? Let's process this. And now, okay, how do we deal with it? And I would say that men with illnesses are the same way. You know, we get a cold or sniffles and we're like locked up in bed. We're like, ah. And so, you know, I think that that's what we do. We tend to kind of go in and go, you know, I don't believe it, right? I don't believe it. I mean, I had that plus, listen, I grew up Jewish, right? So I've got a Jewish mother who's like, I told you there was something. I knew there was something, you know. I was like, that doesn't help me, just FYI, to keep telling me that you were right and I was wrong. And, you know, now what, you know, good luck, you know. So I just want to, you know, from that perspective, I mean, I think that you and Laura have done an amazing job at, you know, balancing a family of such, you know, so many kids and so many things, and you've taken stuff on. And so one thing that we do as men is we tend to kind of broaden our shoulders a little bit once we get over the initial pain, and we go, okay, well, let's be like, you know, let's use the term Atlas, but let's start carrying the world on our shoulders and figure out what we need to do to kind of get to the next level and support the effort. But, you know, very focused on, let's get stuff done. What's the next step and the next step and the next step. And so anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just noting that's a common thing. And I think that's what, and it's what makes what you and I do, you know, such a thing. First of all, by the way, this is the first time we've gone through this, you know, without either of us, you know, crying. Right? We're very emotional about this. But second of all, the fact that we're men, you know, fathers of kids who have special needs, and we're willing to go out and put ourselves in a position of vulnerability and go out and talk to families and share the story and share what we've been through. Because, you know, it's one thing when we look at somebody who has in a position of authority and it's easy to separate and go, well, you don't know my situation, so I'm going to stop listening to you because you don't have any relatedness to what I'm going through. And I think that that's where you and I get a chance to kind of break through out of that morass and say, listen, we've been there, done it, we've experienced all of it, and we're willing to share how horribly painful those moments of, you know, diagnoses were for us individually. And it's a collective experience. And to say, but by the way, there's now hope of what you can do next and where you can go next and what's there to do and other things to look at. And so, you know, I love doing this work with you because I just, you know, I think what we do in general for families anyway is so amazing that people don't really have access to this information, but specifically the special needs community, to let people know that we can help you and be a financial resource for you. We can be an answer, you know, we can solve some problems and answer some questions, but not only that, the fact that Jordan was able to come into the business and get her license and, you know, be interested in this and do all this stuff. And we're going to have her on here one of these weeks and have her have the conversation. She just called me up the other day because she's moved to upstate New York. She's like, Dad, what do I have to do to get my license in New York? I was like, oh, New York's the hardest place to go get licensed in this arena. But the fact that she's like, I want to go help people. Like, I know a lot of people that have student loan debt, Dad. I know people who have a lot of credit card debt. Let's go help these people. They're hurting right now. That's, you know, that
brings me to, I find myself in having these ever evolving levels of, how do I say this? You know, acceptance or nerve in terms of the barriers that we have to break through to get to the people in our community. Because there are some people in some of the groups that I belong to on social media and stuff like that, that some of the stuff that they're facing is just huge. And then what's unique too is that each of us is unique as an individual and as a person. So that dictates how you're going to handle things like a diagnosis and the challenges that come with it, especially if you're in an area like, say, unlike California, where we have all these resources that got a phone call there and it's starting to jump a little. But anyway, you know, what happens is there's some people, and it's kind of hard to not sound like you're judging someone else's situation, because we're all the sum total of our experiences. And so we can't judge anybody else on theirs. But there are some people that, and in many cases, justifiable reasons where they're not able and to either accept outside help or information, the idea that there might be light and there might be a way. So that's why, you know, to do what we do, what we do as a firm, but what you and I have chosen to do as individuals and business owners, you know, takes, you know, an extra layer of armor and care, but it's one that is just so rewarding when you go out there and somebody is like at point A, you get them to point B. And just so we can reiterate for those that may have just jumped on or not familiar, the way that we're getting people from point A to point B are things that people with any typical family needs and typically need in any space and time. Things like protection against loss of income, able to retire in some kind of comfort, having a handle on and eliminating debt, whether you're talking about student loans, tax debt, or credit cards, having an estate plan of some kind that's put together, whether you're talking about a will or a trust. Because the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a plan for your money, the government does. And it doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Donald Trump,
Right.
Barack Obama, George Bush, doesn't matter who's in office. They have a plan for your money if you don't have a plan for it. And then when you now think about COVID-19, the pandemic, right? And then couple that with the special needs community, there are more people that need what we have to offer and what we do than there are enough of us to do it. And getting back to just the comment I made a second ago when I talked about, you know, it doesn't matter who's in there, they have a plan for you. That's another thing too. Anything that brings together, you know, it brings some we into the picture and minimizes or gets rid of the us versus them, which there's so much of right now, is something that is so worthwhile, right, to say the very, very least. And that's what, you know, that's what I'm, you know, thankful for.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, Shawn, it's for me, I'm inspired by this stuff. I've lived it. I mean, Jordan's in a position where she's now obviously on her own, and, they're looking at getting a house, right? That's the goal, but I'm still, inspired by you and the work that you do. And you're such a champion in this. You sit on these advisory boards, and you're involved in the, in the community, and for me, that you're just, you as much as Laura was in on your stuff and getting stuff handled for Elijah, who you are for the community is, you're a warrior. I mean, frankly, this is going to sound weird. You're doing the work that I don't have to do. And I don't mean it that way. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, I know that stuff is getting handled because you're doing the work. Right. And I'm really just a kind of a support in all of this, and part of this community outreach that we do. But you do such amazing work that I'm, honored to be in business with you, in life and in our company and the work that we do. And this community needs people like you to continue to be advocates. And I think that at the end of the day, that's the word for everybody, right? People are looking for advocates, somebody who will be a champion and lead them and guide and give them the tools that they need to become whatever it is, financially independent or secure, or at least have peace of mind that if God forbid something happens to them, their family's taken care of, their special needs family is taken care of, that their legacy goes on, and it's not, it's not imposed on the family by a government or by any other outside force. And so, I love doing the work that we do. And I don't know, I mean, from a timing perspective, how we want to go with this. And I'm not sure how many people have been on. I saw a few notes and all, but I think, for us, we should, let people know the kinds of companies that people that we're going to have on here with us are people like us. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I find that in the work that we do, one of the things that's the most rewarding is there are people in our lives that we interact with on a daily basis that we had no idea were dealing with issues of special needs. And I think that is the reality for a lot of people. They don't realize that their next door neighbor or their coworker or somebody that they interact with on a daily basis goes home and is dealing with somebody that has special needs issues. And again, whatever that is, whether it's autism, learning disability, cerebral palsy, they're restricted to, to a chair. Folks who have been either through, from birth or through an accident or something, either internal or external, right? That all of a sudden they have more need than the average person in just living their life. And one of our coworkers, we do a lot of these presentations with, just for people to know, Adam Hancock is a quadriplegic, and yet it takes him hours to get out in the world every day. Where me, like, if I can pop up and throw on some shorts and a t-shirt, I'm out the door, right? It takes me like a minute. I can grab something to eat as I'm running. It takes Adam hours to get going, and he's our business, management. He's part of our business management team, and doing such amazing work. And people who interact with him on the phone have no idea, because they just don't know. They don't think of it. If it's not in your world, it's not in your world. And so, when we work with Adam and April and other folks in our company, in our office, but in our company across the country that are dealing with this, but even our partners like Charles Hughes at Debt America, we heard that story about him dealing with his brother. Man, it just brings tears to your eyes when you had no idea, because you meet somebody in a certain context, and then you're like, I know you from this, from this box that I've, put you in, and yet you have this whole other experience. And it's the rewarding thing for me is to see that we're touching so many people.
And
right?
what that is too,
touching so many folks.
That's just, an indication of how we should be treating everything, generally speaking. And again, the pandemic brings that home, because what we need to do is remain as childlike as we possibly can and not childish. Sometimes we get a little more of the latter than the former. But, you take children, you put them together, they have different backgrounds, different races, whatever have you, and they're going to have a sincere curiosity about each other and not be afraid to ask that question. So if there's anything that brings people together,
correct,
that's what has to be done. And on that note, and with that in mind, anybody who's looking at this, you have the least bit of curiosity about what we do, or someone with special needs, by all means, have them, check out what we do. We're going to be on here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. And going forward, we're going to have people on here that will, be able to add some value in the area of special needs trust and things of that sort, various areas. And we also are hosting different events on Zoom designed for our special needs community to bring financial education, awareness, and opportunity. And in between those events, we're going to be doing this once a week. And we want to encourage as many people to pop in and take a look and ask us the questions. As a matter of fact, there's a Facebook group that I belong to for special needs parents, and someone posted in particular that their biggest worry is that no one's going to love their child as they do when they pass away. And I stated, well, that's a fact of life and something that most parents worry about. And the responses that followed through with that was amazing, and it goes back to what we said just a minute ago, that curiosity and making sure that you have some interest in what it's like to walk in somebody else's shoes. Because I'm a person that considers myself to be fairly on it compared to the average person in terms of being compassionate and wondering about what other people's situation is like. And at the same time, despite that, it never ceases to amaze me how many times I'm awakened by somebody else's situation that's right next to you and going through something that either you can help them with, right, or you can get appreciation, because you're constantly reminded that your biggest nightmares are somebody else's dreams. So and then we have a responsibility to just make sure that we look out for and look after and take care of each other. That doesn't mean that means the best way to do that too is to empower someone to take care of themselves. And sometimes that happens just by letting somebody know that, whatever it is that you're going through, that thing, trust me, you're not alone. Because the weight of it is so big that you think nobody knows, but I know nobody's going through what I'm going through. What are you going to say?
Well, and to your point, I think that's what I think of anything that we've been missing over the last 6 months. Some could say over the last couple of years. I'm not getting political, but the concept of compassion, right? It doesn't really, we can't know what somebody else is going through unless we are in their shoes. And so there's been this sort of hardening, this lack of compassion, the lack of, understanding of what somebody else is going through because they're different. Families who have children with special needs, more than anybody experience that on a daily basis. I'm sure that you've had, those situations where, your child has an outburst and people are like, can't you keep that kid quiet, or can't you blah, blah. They have no idea what you go through. The lack of compassion that has been pervasive in our country for such a long time. We need to get back to that, and hopefully, we can get back on the trail. And even if we can improve that for one life, Shawn, then you and I are doing, we're doing the right thing, because we want to help folks understand that to your point, they're not alone. There others are going through it, and we care. And while listen, that may be true of everybody. We may not, our children may not be loved by others as much as we love them. And that's again, to your point, that is a universal concern. The reality is that your child can be cared for. Your wishes or beyond your life, that's possible to put something together. And hopefully we're contributing to that effort, and we're contributing to those, those things, and putting people at, creating some peace of mind for them and putting them at ease, knowing that, while they figure out what they're going to do in the next year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, what happens in the next 30, 50, years, and then some, and into the next generations. And so that's why I love the work that we do, and I love doing this with you. And I'm glad that we got this technology figured out. There's still some glitches that we'll try to handle, but hopefully, as we go through these lives every week and bring more value to folks with very specifics, hopefully people will see that and be able to spread the word. So I don't know if you want to, if there's anything you want to add to, obviously we're both on Instagram, we're both on Facebook.
You can follow both of us on Facebook, on Instagram. Go ahead and give your Instagram handle, Brian.
I'm so easy. My name is it's my name. My Instagram handle is @Brian Altounian. My Facebook is Brian Altounian. Like, there's no dots. It's all my name. So it's I wish that we could type it out there. Well, I guess you can see it if you join this Facebook Live. My name. So Facebook and Instagram are all the same. Twitter for me, it's all the same. I use the same thing, and there's no reason to
my Instagram
be anonymous.
Is, I am Shawn Francis.
And you?
And then we're working on a page that is an account that is specific to what it is that we're doing. So that'll be forthcoming. And again, we'll be here every Wednesday at 2 p.m. We have Pacific Standard Time. We don't necessarily have an end time, but we want to encourage as many people to hop on. For those of you that did today, we appreciate that. This will obviously be available as a replay on Facebook for a little while. And this is just, let me say what it is that we want to do. We want this to be an initiative that empowers and improves the lives of as many people as humanly possible. And while the target is the special needs community, there are people that anyone that earns $1 and pays taxes would appreciate the information. Anyone that has a tendency to give a damn about other people, especially those that might have a challenge helping themselves and like the idea of putting them in a position to help themselves, will appreciate the information. Anybody that wants to be uplifted or uplift someone else, then our intention is for you to have some appreciation for what it is that we're trying to do. So thanks again for the time, Brian. And I love it. This was great.
My pleasure, but I'm glad we're doing this.
Thank you. We'll be back.
And for everybody who jumped on, thank you. Thanks for the comments, and we'll hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye.